Right. Usually we have a presenter and a presentation, a focus. This time it's us. It's everybody. And like we've done at the beginning of the conference the past few years, the opening event of claiming your place by the fireside, and speaking up and sharing your truth and letting other people hear your voice is, I'd like to replicate that. So, get out the s'mores, dim the lights, make it a fireside, and be generous. When Harry and I talked about this before, it occurred to me that this is kind of like an oral history that's being captured. I mean, it's being recorded, and there's just all kinds of goodness in that. We all have interesting stories to share that I think are, it's important that we share them for ourselves and also for others. So I have some questions here that I've come up with, and I would love it if you just jump in and kind of like we do at the fireside, jump in and then jump out and let someone else have a chance at it also. So really the first question was, when was the first time you ever heard of this coaching thing, life coaching or any kind?
Landmark Education, 1998, self-expression and leadership program. Got a coach for the program. Loved it. Became one and found out that you can make money doing it. So I went to school, and the rest you heard earlier.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. So 98, that was pretty early.
Well, that's when I heard about it. So,
yeah.
And I had a coach. And I guess those were the early days of coaching. Thomas Leonard started before that too. And I think he was very much a land Martian too.
What? A land Martian?
Yeah, I'm a land Martian as well.
Hey!
And so I had a coach in that program. I guess that was my first coach as well. But I don't think I didn't identify them so much as a life coach in the way that I did when I met Jim Lapata. And I met Jim at a meditation workshop that he led during, I think, Gay Spirit Week. And after the meditation, he said that he's also a life coach, and he was offering these free hour sessions. He was still really early in his career. So he was like trying to get enough hours, and I lucked out and got a free session with him early in his career, and described this dream that I had of starting my own nonprofit, which is now sort of like percolating for me again now that I'm not at Easton. And so he was like excited to work with me on that. And then Easton came about, and he ended up becoming my coach and working with me on transitioning to living and working at Easton. And yeah, so that was my first intro for life coaching for me was those sessions with Jim Lapata, who's still my life coach today.
Okay, good, very good. Hey Jeff, when did you first hear about coaching? Who was the first time?
I don't really know. I mean, I certainly knew of coaching in the sports arena forever.
Right.
My younger brother volunteered to be the manager of the football team. Because he was very kind of intellectual. He became a doctor eventually, but his duties included like massaging football players and other things like that. So, I got into this myself when a friend of mine asked me for help, and it was kind of a dual coach relationship. He was offered to teach me how to run a business, and he asked me to teach him how to be happy. And the end result of that was he spectacularly succeeded in that, and also produced 2 different $100 million businesses while I was coaching him and helping him with both the happiness and business stuff. And that's what made me think I should really do this for a living instead of for free.
Nice. Yeah. So what time frame was that then?
So that was maybe 12 years ago, kind of. I don't remember exact year, but something like that.
Yeah, this century.
Yeah.
Not last century.
Meet that guy until 2001 or two. So.
Yeah. Okay. Ken, when did you first hear about coaching?
Well, I'm trying to look it up, see if I can come up with the date. But midway in my career at American Airlines, and I was a member of a local association here called the North Texas Speakers Association, which was a part of the National Speakers Association. And one of our members announced she was a professional coach and motivational speaker. I remember thinking, what's, professional coach? And so she talked to us about it periodically. And I'm thinking that was 96, 97-ish at that point. But I'd never heard of it before then. It sounded intriguing, and it also sounded like, I don't know, new age kind of shit. And I was like, yeah, I don't think I'm buying into it. But now I see it differently. So I was just I remembered her name while we were talking, and I was looking up her website. And she is kind of in that Shirley MacLaine new age kind of stuff. She is, but thankfully I'm with more of a professional group now today. So.
Oh. Okay. Yeah. Well, it's kind of lonely on the leading edge. So.
Maybe that's the case. Or she was just a one of. But that was the first time. It was 20 something years ago.
Yeah. So it was intriguing, and you guys tucked it away. Well, that's interesting.
Well, I tucked it away, but I also thought, the things that she would talk about and how she does it, I always thought of it as facilitate leadership classes and things when I was with the airline, and then of course today as well. And a lot of that is around trying to get people to self-discover. So a lot of the techniques as I've started my coaching training are things that I learned, through leadership training over the last 20, 30 years.
Yeah. Cool. Good. Let's see. So, Harry, I know you touched, you talked about the automat. What, did you tell us when was the first time you heard of that coaching was a thing?
Yes, I can remember it vividly, almost like a spiritual intervention. In the backstory is because of that woman in the automat, I kind of have a reputation for thinking of good ideas of what you all should do to take care of yourself. But the last person I pay attention to is myself. So you all know that about me. It's not hidden. And I was teaching a body electric workshop in the 90s, the late 90s, maybe like Garry around 1997. And I went around twice a month to cities all over the United States and Canada. And I was in Portland, Oregon. And I did the workshop. It was Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday. And there was a man in the workshop who was so attractive that I had to stop and watch him. And it wasn't his physical beauty. It was something about him. And he was good looking. He was in his 50s. He had gray hair and a gray goatee. And on Sunday, he came up to me to thank me for the workshop. And I said, do you mind if I ask you a question? And he said, no. And I said, I have been watching you, and there's just something about you I have to ask you. Who are you, and what do you do in the world? And he said, well, I'm an Episcopal minister, but what I do is that I'm a life coach. And I said, what? And he said, I'm a life coach. And he told me something about it. So this is how my stupidity, in a way. So the life coach went over my head, and I went home, and I was talking to a friend, and I said, I just heard about this new profession and I think you should sign up for it. And I told him, and he said, Harry, why are you telling me this? He said, you should sign up for it. And that woke me up when he said that. Why am I always thinking about what would be good for other people? This is right in front of me. So 2 weeks later, I was in the first class at CTI because I was living in San Francisco and they were offering one in San Rafael. So that's how that happened. I was so grateful that I was able to act on the, the beginning impulse. Thank you. And I have a question because is it coaching related to this topic because Ken and Tim are both former or presently employed by airlines? Did you know each other at American Airlines?
Mm-hmm.
You two?
Yes.
Yeah.
As a coach or before that?
Mm-hmm. That's a good question, Ken. That was we kind of worked in similar departments, and I think I was in a training class you taught once, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yeah. Well, I remember more of, and I remember the class. I don't remember you being in that class, but more from a corporate communication standpoint.
Yeah.
I was over our emergency response department, and we would liaison with corporate communications on holding statements and things like that if we had an accident. And so our paths would cross periodically in that realm.
Yeah.
At least what I remember. And then a mutual friend, Wes. So.
Yeah. Yes, our lives have crossed paths several different ways, and here we are again.
I know.
About that.
I'm like a bad penny. You just can't get rid of me.
Or me. So let's see. Alan, when did you first hear about coaching?
I heard about it from Harry, who would not shut up about it. And I went out and got myself a coach, and that's when I became a coach junkie. So I had a wonderful coach who also was a ex-priest. I don't know if it's the same guy we're talking about, but different. Okay. And anyway, really helped me. And I've had 3 coaches. 2 of them were gay men, and one of them was a straight woman. And the 2 gay men were fantastic, and the straight woman was not so much. So that's my background.
Okay. Well, first time I ever heard of coaching was actually from Harry. I was in a Body Electric. Actually, Larry was with me too. Body Electric workshop in Dallas at the fairgrounds. And I think Harry at the end said something about he was a life coach, and it was something just really kind of landed about, well, that's intriguing. I wonder what that means. And I can't remember if I came and talked to him about it or what. I can't remember exactly. This was back in the 90s. I guess, Harry, you probably had just sort of began. And then Dave Allen led another one that I was in, and he talked about it also. And I thought, okay, I need to listen to this because this sounds really intriguing. And then wound up working with, Larry worked with Dave Allen as a coach, and he really liked it. And when he finished, I worked with Dave. And when I was working with him, I thought, not only is this work, I'd like to do it, and I think I'd be good at it. And so it was a twofer working with Dave, who's of course an excellent coach. I've had several coaches along the way. Harry was a coach of mine, and also excellent. I highly recommend him as well. Coaches have coaches, so I've had coaches all along. Which this actually leads to the next question, was about when did you have this epiphany of, I want to do that. I think I want to be a coach. I think some of you maybe have answered that, but maybe not everyone. maybe Ken,
I knew you were going to do that.
because maybe you're the only one that hadn't answered it.
No, well, you know, I'm new to the genre, so to speak, and you know, how do I want to say this? I want the education in the process of being a coach, and take what I know from facilitation and the art of leadership and facilitation, and take it deeper. Will I advertise myself as a coach or executive leadership development and just use that to enhance what I already do? I may, at some point, it may turn into personal leadership development. I haven't decided yet, but I'm very anxious to continue the education process and learn more about coaching and the philosophy and the various processes that people use to be an effective coach.
Yeah, good.
So I'm hoping that'll wrap up in early 2018. You know, I've been talking with you, Tim, about different programs to enroll in. I'm in one now. Might change, haven't decided.
Okay. Well, there's plenty of good ones out there and lots of ways of delivering it. So, which also could lead to the next question about what training did you get, and how did you happen to pick that training? That could be for anyone, but as long as you've got the talking stick.
Well, you told me to.
Oh, okay. Next.
I told everybody you were my mentor, and I listened to what you say.
Yes.
No, I mean, it was a chance opportunity to go to a session run by an organization that was doing something here in Dallas-Fort Worth, and so I went to that opening to hear about it. I liked it. They were starting their first core class the next day, so I signed up and went for it. And I really liked it, and I enjoyed it. But over time, over a few months, and starting a new crisis consulting company, I'm looking more now for something that I can do here in Dallas to finish the certification versus having to travel to take the different modules. And that's the main reason why I would look at switching from one to another. So I'm exploring local DFW options versus traveling out. So. Yeah.
Well, and there again, like some good local ones here.
Yeah.
So Garry, you chose CTI. How did you pick that one? I think you're on mute.
I know I'm on mute, but my finger doesn't go that fast when I'm called on. All right? Honestly, slow it down, guys. You know, interestingly, back in the days of technology, early days of technology, there were only three schools with websites. And to be quite honest, CTI is the only one I could understand. So I picked that one, and turned out to be one of the first and preeminent schools. Still is a going concern, although they don't advertise or do anything to promote themselves, and yet everybody still knows CTI. So that's why I chose that one.
Yeah.
So it was literally a logistical process of elimination. They had nothing that they said or anything. Just I could understand what the hell's on their website.
Okay. Well, you set the bar so high. I mean, are you glad? I can see that as a testimonial.
They were the least crappy.
Right. You were the least crappy.
They sucked less than the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and remember, it was late 2000. So
yeah.
So I picked it in late 2000, jumped on board in January of 2001 in Denver, the first course, and did the rest of them in Toronto. And a year and a half later, I was done certification. And when these sort of things, it's like either I'm in or I'm not. So if I'm in, I'm in whole hog. So I just went with everything. Same thing happened with being a land Martian, did the whole curriculum, signed up, just quit asking me. I'm already signed.
Oh, that's been my experience of you too. It's like you're all in.
Yeah, I'm either all in or I'm not in.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're glad you're here. Hey, well, Will, are you there?
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty easy answer in that my training program was at my house. It was, where I lived at Easton Mountain. And it just so happened that there was some extra spaces available. So, an opportunity arose. I had considered a coaching training program, doing that kind of thing before, but I wasn't too serious about it. I kind of thought it would happen later in my life. I thought it'd happen maybe in my 50s or 60s. And then this opportunity came up, and I'm so glad it did and that I jumped at it. I knew that coaching had made a big impact on my life from my work with Jim, but I didn't know how much joy and fulfillment and meaning it would bring to my life by becoming a coach. And so I'm glad that I did that now in my life rather than later in life. So it was a real blessing.
Yeah, and you did the coaching for LGBT coaching.
Yeah, and that was really special to me too. I mean, I've been kind of a professional gay for most of my adult life. I've worked with gay nonprofits and been sort of surrounded by queer and gay people. So the fact that this training was specific to our community meant a lot to me too. And I feel real fortunate about that as well.
Yeah. Cool. Jeff, why don't you tell us about your training?
So I have been trained, first of all, in a system called Book Yourself Solid, which is a sales and marketing system.
Can't hear you.
Initially, sorry?
It's hard to hear you.
I don't
Really soft.
know what else I can do.
That's fine. A little better. Go ahead.
My initial training in anything related to this was in a specific sales and marketing system called Book Yourself Solid, which is helping people understand. And I did a presentation on that at the most recent May conference. Right?
Great.
So that was my introduction to any kind of coaching, and I was certified in that system and to teach the system to other people. Then when I told you the story before of helping my friend, and I just started to help people who were running companies just think more like a CEO. And then my customers started asking me for a system called Mastering the Rockefeller Habits. And I got certified in that system as well. And now it's like more than half my business that I travel around and do those kind of retreats for executives. And again, it's not the coaching certification. These are more certifications in particular techniques or particular methodologies that's very business focused. But that's my whole exposure, is kind of those professional-ish certifications in content.
Yeah. So it's a pretty diverse group in the paths to coaching. Mine was CTI. I came in through CTI, and it was a body electric retreat, and Reed Waller, who was in ICF, I saw him in Washington at the ICF conference, was there, and he had finished certification for the CTI, and I had just left American, and I knew I wanted to get into coaching, but I hadn't picked a program for training. And kind of like Garry, I'm not going to just kind of do it halfway. So I was looking for really robust coach training, something that I could really learn. Didn't want to do an online correspondence course, that kind of thing. And Reed kind of sold me on CTI and their approach, and it was. I'm really glad I did. I really liked CTI, and it did mean travel, but at that time it was not a problem because I had an abundance of free time. And so I'm curious, about, we've talked, some of us, about our niches or ideal clients. And I'm curious if, if you haven't shared already about this, or if you would like to add more about how did you get clarity or focus on your clients, who you wanted to serve, or who you didn't want to serve, maybe.
All right, I seem to be the go first guy today. So
Yay, Garry.
He's all in.
Well, first, the rule of thumb for CTI is coach everybody that's breathing, right? Like swing a cat, hit them, knock them down, and coach them. Okay?
Yeah.
So through that process, it was pretty clear who I did and didn't want to coach, because I took a look at whether I liked coaching them or not, and what was it about them or what they did. It wasn't just about them as people, but it was also what they did. Then, while I was the president of the Toronto chapter of ICF, my vice president, who was a very successful, back then, this was like 2005, she was making probably $250,000 a year just doing coaching. Yeah, and she makes over $500,000 a year now. And I said to her, I'm having a hard trouble figuring out which it is. So she gave me a bloody spreadsheet and said, okay, write down what you like, or your client, what you like about them, what you don't like about them, and kind of extrapolate out of that, right? And so I did, and I narrowed it down to, and then I did an interview process. So I found some people that I knew, networked with, and I asked them if they'd be willing to be interviewed. It wasn't for the purpose of selling them, it was for research. And I narrowed it down to these were the, wanted to work with business owners that had at least 5 people working for them.
Mm-hmm.
And, the trick about that 5 people working for them, it's, at least, is because that meant they had the resources to delegate, and they had the resources to pay those people so they could afford me. Because what I also found out when I was doing certification, just one last backward track, is I made the mistake of offering coaching 4 times a month for 60 minutes each.
Wow.
For 3 months for $150. Well, shoot me now. Okay, so you learn, you try things that work and you like it, you try things that don't work. But I think bottom line is, who do you like coaching right now, or who you don't like coaching? And either take what you like or take the reverse of what you don't like. It's pretty simple logistic wise.
Yeah.
And just on a side note, Wil, I want to know where I sign up to become a professional gay. I guess I must be an amateur gay. I hate being a hacker. You know me, I'm all in. Where do I sign to be a professional gay?
You've already got your
I've never heard that term.
Do we get a certificate or something? Because I don't have one either.
Graduation.
I want to know about the testing process.
Oh,
yeah, it's in depth. It's definitely in depth.
Of course you do.
Garry, you need a hat.
What's that?
Garry, you need a hat.
Oh, yeah.
Wil's wearing a hat. He's the only one in the call wearing a hat. There you go. There are some days.
See, there you go. I feel underdressed. Well, so I'm curious now. What? So you started coach. You go through some training. You get you start coaching. What was the biggest surprise? Something you didn't expect from before you started coaching.
how easy it was.
How easy it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that, and I bless that I came across Ray Riglioso, because one of the books that I read is Gay Men in the New Way Forward, and what makes us different from others. And just realizing, you know, the opportunity to go, oh, really? Oh, that's so right. You know, oh, really? Oh, yeah, I guess I'm like that kind of thing. Well, coaching was similar to that. I think it's something that women and gay men do really, really well. We have empathy. We've gone through trials and tribulation, most of us, to be out, or, you know, in some people's cases, you've, you know, defended our rights and given us the freedoms we have today. You've traveled an awesome path. Some of you are professional gays, so that's a new one I'm going to post about. Not letting that one go well. And, you know, so I don't know. Is it one of those things that we're inherently great at? Like a lot of us are caretakers, right? We have that compassion where we avoid fights, physical altercations, you know, those kind of things. And I think coaching is one of those, you know, maybe that's, it's like flight attendant, hairdresser, florist, and coach.
I forgot decorators.
Oh, interior decorators. Sorry, silly me. Yeah, my husband and his color schemes. Here you go.
Yeah. Fabulous.
Yeah, exactly, darling.
Yeah. Well, it occurs to me, too, that probably women, too, but in this culture anyway, gay men, gay folks in general, have to be, for survival, had to be really keen observers and be able to read the room and kind of just really maybe be hypersensitive and scan the environment. And so kind of that level 3 thing, I suppose. Mm-hmm. And, you know, nature and nurture, I don't know if that's, you know, something we're hardwired or we just learn to survive, but I think there are gifts in that to help us to be maybe more empathetic. Most of us, and you know, that's a broad brush approach to things, but it seems like when I was at ICF in Washington, the big conference there, the demographics was mostly women, and the men that were there, lots of them were gay men. And I would say probably a majority of them, although I did not do any research. And that's kind of our chapter of ICF too. I mean, Ken, don't you come to our meetings? Let's see, what does that say? Special gay? Yeah. That would be you. That would be you. Yeah. So, other surprises when you first time you coached or started coaching, like, boy, I didn't even see that coming.
So I thought about that question, and one of the surprises that I've experienced multiple times is I will have been working with a client, and then we have a phone call or a video call or a meeting, and then let's say there's a month goes by and we're not contacted at all. Okay, during that entire month, I have not thought about that client. I have not worked for that client. I've not done anything. Right? Then we get together again, and right before the call, I'm like, gee, what have I done for you lately? I haven't even thought about you or anything. And then the call starts, and he's like, I've thought about what we worked on every day. This has made such a gigantic difference in my success in my life and my outlook. So it's like, what was surprising is the depth and breadth of the influence that the coaching process has.
Yeah.
You know, and the underground power of it. Right? I'm not surprised people get help immediately and get new insights immediately, but that kind of ongoing momentum of the ideas taking root in somebody's life. Mm-hmm. How vast it is, how powerful it is.
And you had made up in your mind, you haven't talked to them, you know, that life froze since you talked, and even feeling like, you know, what have I done for you today or lately? And
yeah, and then the calls often start out with that, like, powerful, like, almost testimony of what's going on. And
you haven't.
It's happened a lot, but it still was surprising.
Yeah, yeah. One of CTI's founders was Whitworth.
Laura Whitworth.
Yeah. one of the trainers in one of the sessions that I assisted in a couple of years ago told me that Laura's unfortunately has passed away since then, but she would tell people in her own apparently very direct way, don't make assumptions about the impact your coaching is having on other people. You're making these assumptions, and I do, and often I'm wrong. And it's in this case, I mean, Jeff, you made up this story about that. Anybody else? Any other surprises in your once you started coaching?
Yeah, I'd like to chime in. Hi, everyone. It's Arnie. I was doing chair massage downtown Boston, so that's why I'm late.
Hey, Arnie.
Hi. So now, let's see. I graduated Damien's program in October of last year. So this is the 1-year anniversary of being a graduate and sort of being out there doing coaching. And the big surprise is a few of my clients telling me what a difference it's making in their lives. For example, it's very moving, actually. One client told me he's been working on this issue for like 40 years, is what he told me.
Wow.
Nothing has worked to help him get unstuck. He has certain patterns about how he lives his life that are self-sabotaging. And to tell you the truth, we did something unusual. We did intensive coaching twice a week, which is unusual, but that's what he wanted. So we did it. And just having a partner with him who really cares and will really listen to him.
Mm-hmm.
And we tried different things, and now it's sticking. He's getting to bed earlier. He's waking up earlier. He's more focused. He's thrilled. He did it. I held the space, but it's more the power of holding space for people. And just like I have a new client who's actually in the coaching program that Damien's teaching now, and he was assigned to me, and he asked me sort of for my advice as a coach in going through training. I said to him, the biggest surprise is he's going to have his first coaching session yesterday, with his new client. And I remember how nervous I was. And he said, I'm nervous. I said, you know what? If you do nothing else and just give someone your attention and listen for a half hour, 45 minutes, that's valuable. How often do people just listen to us? So that's been the big surprise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nice. Good. Yeah. Harry, did you have an epiphany or surprise when you started coaching?
I guess I did have a story. I went to the first coaches training program in San Rafael, and I couldn't schedule another one for 8 months because of my work at the Body Electric. And a couple of months after I started, I was in San Francisco, and I was riding my bicycle to the dentist in the Embarcadero.
Mm-hmm.
And the dentist gave me some very, very bad news. And he said, you're going to need a complete dental restoration.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't do that. I'll recommend that you go to the University of San Francisco to the Graduate School of Prosthodontics. This is like major repair.
Wow.
And it's probably going to cost you, about $100,000. No, maybe he said 50,000.
Oh.
I came out of the doctor's office and I leaned down to take the lock off, and this voice was saying, you'll have to give up, you'll have to get false teeth. And by the time I got my lock off and stood up, another voice said, you can earn that money by coaching. That voice, it happened to me. I didn't make it happen. And I went home, and the next day I started writing a letter to everybody I knew, every gay man I knew, an individual letter saying, I'm a coach, this is what I'm doing, and I'm open for business. And because I'm just starting out, the rates are reduced. Mm-hmm. And I wrote a hand, Dear Alan, or Dear Ken, or Dear Tim. And I wrote a little note at the bottom. And a week went by, I had 3 clients. Another week went by, I had 5 clients. Another week went by, I had 10 clients. And within 6 months, I had 15 clients.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to the next coach's training program, which was number 2. And they have a segment there, which is you share who you are, what you do. I said, my name's Harry, and I'm a life coach, and I coach gay men, and I have 15 clients. And they all were shocked, sitting in the circle. Like, how did you get 15 clients? Like, look at you. You know, there's nothing impressive about you.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had 20 clients. And then I decided I want to see how far this is going to go. And it went as high as 36 clients.
Wow.
And then I thought, I can't do anymore. This is it. So then I started going down and down and down. And I figured out what my norm would be. Somewhere at that time, it was around 24. But I raised enough money for my dental restoration through this. And that surprised me, that I could actually manipulate the economic sphere in that way to do that. And also that people that if I was completely vulnerable to tell everybody I knew, there was nobody who didn't know that I was a coach. So if I saw you on the street, you could say, how's your coaching going? Because you knew that's what I was doing. And I think that's what helped me get my really strong start in this profession.
Yeah. Cool.
And with 36 clients, I think that makes you a professional gay.
Nice. Wow. Well, just keeping an eye on the time here. I think maybe the last question I'd like to ask would be, you've actually 2-part. Who has had the biggest influence on your life as a coach? And then what influence are you making on helping other people who are coaches?
I'd like to start and mention something that hasn't been mentioned, but I think it's important, is that I have a coach. And I met my coach at my first CTI training. And that was 18 years ago.
Wow.
And I haven't seen him since. And he's been my coach for 18 years. And I can't imagine doing what I've done in my life without having a coach, in particular this guy, but a coach. I can't imagine having, sitting at home alone, going through this idea of these big plans that I had, to start a practice, to move to upstate New York, to help start this retreat center. All of these things I've done, he's been on board, and he has followed me. And I don't know how to qualify the relationship being so unique to know somebody for this long in such an intimate way. And I think he's one of the reasons why I've been able to do what I've been doing.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm grateful for that experience with him. And yeah, that's what I wanted to say about how important it has been for me. God bless you.
Thank you.
And before we get off, kind of like at the end, Tim, if you have a chance, I'm very interested to hear what Jeff Moore has to say about what the fuck is the Rockefeller movement, or whatever he was talking about. I'm curious about that. If you have a minute, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Well, Harry, I know that I probably answer the second part of the question for you, but I could probably let you do that as well. But I mean, you were a founder, one of the founders of the Gay Coaches Alliance. You, I think, had the vision, shared vision for the International Gay Coaches Conference, and we just had our 6th one, I think. So you've made a profound impact on the world and on helping new coaches, especially in the gay community. But So thank you for that. If you're maybe kind of modest in not sharing that, but I'm curious if anyone else, who was the biggest influence for you for coaching?
I'll just chime and say Damien Goldvarg. I mean, he was our trainer, and he just helped set such a great foundation. I feel so confident, even if I don't know what I'm doing sometimes, I just have the foundation to go back to what he taught. So it's rock solid. So that's really it. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I'll echo that and say Damien Goldvarg, though. Jim Lapata, Terry Hildebrand, and Harry Faddis are up there on my list as well.
Yeah.
But Damien really did support me in the journey in helping me just jump into it and give it a shot and feel empowered to do so. And to sort of answer the other question that you asked about my biggest surprise, for me, it was that I could do it, that I was effective at doing it. You know, I knew that coaching worked because I'd been working with Jim for so long, and it was like helping to change my life in positive ways. But I didn't know that I'd be able to do it effectively. And that was a really pleasant surprise.
Nice. That's nice. Good. And so
could I add something?
Yeah.
I forgot to mention that Thomas Leonard was a big influence on me, and I only had an opportunity to meet him about a half a dozen times, but he certainly impacted all of us by what he did, and it just kind of clicked for me when Wil was speaking, Wil and Arnie, that Damien is in that league of Damien Goldvarg and Thomas Leonard. That Damien is right up there and has certainly through his, he's very service oriented. He wants to give a lot back, and so did Thomas Leonard. And I think they have that spirit that exalts them above other people. So thank you for letting me mention Thomas Leonard.
Yeah. There's a generosity there. Yeah. Well, in my own case, I would put Harry, you, and actually Harry and Michael Cohen and Dave Allen. And you three were, the first guys who I'd ever really been around who were coaches, and learned so much from you. And, you were sort of heroes of mine, still are, and learned so much from you. And you inspired me and helped me along the way, helped me develop, and were so generous. And I think we're all standing on the shoulders of giants, kind of like Isaac Newton said many years ago. And so I don't know if it's paying it forward or paying it back, but, making contributions to others. I think that being equally generous, like you all have been, is so important. And actually it's that, I think that generosity I see as a thread through coaching, but especially through, I think, the Gay Coaches Alliance. I've never seen a more generous and big-hearted kind of group who is so helpful to one another. And it really feels, I'm very proud of that. So, anybody else?
Yeah, I'm going to go because, it's all of you and so much more, because it's like choosing what kind of wine or what kind of chocolate to have, and what kind of wine to have with what kind of chocolate. I've had coaches, and I'm like Harry, you notice there was an emphasis by Harry on he has a coach, and there's so many coaches that don't have a coach, and that's just crazy hypocrisy. And I've had a coach since I started coaching, but every coach was for a different purpose. When I was going through training, I picked a CTI coach, and they helped me with coaching using the skills I was learning in CTI. And then, when I needed a coach for abundance, I found somebody else. And when I needed a coach for, so there was always a different coach. And then there's the times when I had multiple coaches at the same time for different reasons, right? So to pick any one, I couldn't, because they all had the influence. Yay, Harry, hat time. They all had different influences for different reasons at different times. So, and you know, there's more to come.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else who inspired you? Well, anything else on this, like even beyond that question? Is there anything else we should, they do like to share about your story or your journey to coach them?
I could certainly address Harry's question for a minute if you'd like.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, Mastering the Rockefeller Habits is a book that was written about 12 or 14 years ago by a guy named Vern Harnish. And he was trying to put together a framework of the best business teachings and make it all fit together in a way you could use it effectively. And he had read a biography of John D. Rockefeller Sr. called Titan. And it talked about some of the things he did, like go on a walk with his executives over lunch, and other things that he thought was a kind of a powerful thing that enabled him to accomplish what he did. And so he used that title to bring together the ideas in the book of kind of what was it that Rockefeller did that we can learn from, combined with what all the best business writers were writing about at the time he wrote the book. So he wrote that book, and then about 2 or 3 years ago, he wrote an advised complete rewrite of the entire thing called Scaling Up. And so I spent a lot of my time doing those, teaching those ideas and helping make those decisions for their business. You know, what is your brand promise? How do you measure it? How do you know you're achieving it? What needs you're fulfilling for your, you know, that kind of dive deep into those things. But the beauty of it is everything reinforces everything else.
Kind of like coaching.
Yes. Well, it's a businessy version of coaching. Yes.
Businessy. Yeah. So Harry, you're satisfied with that?
Yeah, that was good. Thank you. Jeff, you always are involved with such interesting aspects of this work that we're doing.
Yes, I love the work. I love the impact it has. We don't usually talk, we sometimes talk about this, but it's kind of related. I am working on a keynote speech that's all about how there's an underlying structure to business that if you understand it, gives you superpowers. So that's
superpowers.
Yeah, superpowers. And a lot of successful business people are successful despite not knowing how it really works. And then once they know how it works, they can be much more successful.
Wow. Well, that's all the questions that I could think of on this topic. I think
add a question?
Huh?
Can I add a question that was inspired by what I've heard today?
Sure.
And I'll start with you, Tim. What is it that you would like to get coaching on for yourself now?
Say it again.
What would you like to be coached on yourself now? At this stage of your development, what do you need from a coach? A current, future coach?
I think it's about what's next. I set out, left corporate, did the midlife reinvention thing, and started this business. And, I had this vision and the dream, and it's here. I worked hard, and here it is. So what's next? And I'm not clear on that yet. And that, I think, is really good fodder for coaching, is to have that next dream. And I think it's an iteration of this, but do I want more of some things or and less of others? And is there something else I want to do?
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey,
How about
Gary. Huh? Well, I'll answer too, but I'd like to hear some other answers. Gary, you also inspired me with your story about multiple coaches and coaches for different times. So it made me think, who's your next coach going to be, or what kind of coach are you going to get next?
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know, I've got so many things in the fire now, but I think it's going to be along the lines of succession planning. So, you know, Harry, unfortunately or fortunately, put the bug about eldership and stuff in my head. So now it's, you know, how do I extract myself from Choice Magazine, which was created out of being a coach. So there's the answer you were asking about earlier, Harry. And I have other things I want to do. I'm going to San Diego as a reserve coach for a program there. So Wil and I we're privately chatting. I'm privately chatting with the PG, and and we're gonna get together when I'm out there. And I'm also working with Jeb Bates on a coaching and consulting for corporations. And how does that get introduced? So, you know, and Tim and Terry have been huge resources all along the way and coming up for this next issue, which will be of service not just to coaches, but to coaching corporations. So I think just kind of put it in a nutshell, Jeff, it's to elevate myself to be of service on the coaching profession rather than just in the coaching profession.
Awesome. Anybody else? How about Harry?
Well, I'm beyond the age of elder, but one of the things that I think years ago, there was a book came out called Plato, Not Prozac. And the theory of the book was most of our problems are not psychological, they're philosophical. We don't need therapy. We need to learn how to think about the world and ourselves. And in the last so many years, I have thought that most of my issues are spiritual. And what is the context of my life? And what is the actual platform for my beliefs? And that my coach helps me figure out what are those defects or failings that get in my way of exercising my true nature. So a lot of the calls that I have with him are about dealing with those issues that are more spiritual than they are psychological. So it's beyond Plato, and it's more some other venue. So that's how that I'm working on these days with my coach. And I couldn't work on this with somebody new, I don't think. I think it requires all the trust and faith and intimacy that we have over all these years. And he can challenge me in a way that other people cannot. Thank you, that's it.
Okay. Arnie, do you want to play?
Well, I'm happy to respond. I honestly don't know what's next. Just where it feels like I am is in the flow of coaching and enjoying it and experiencing the we call it, the effects of it with my clients. And that's just being in a good place with that feels like it's enough right now. Because again, it's just been a year, and not just, but it's been a year, and I'm just enjoying being a coach and experiencing, for me, just like in massage, when someone leaves the table and they're like, oh, I'm so relaxed, their stress is gone. When someone leaves the coaching session and they feel inspired, they've seen themselves in a new way, that's a big reward for me. That's very satisfying in my ethos, what I'm about as a person.
Yeah.
The other side of the coin, though, is Jeff, I want to acknowledge you. You encouraged me to look at money and what I charge for my services. And that's because of Jeff, his generosity of conversation. About 6 months ago, I led my first business meeting and got paid more than I got paid for my time. So that was a stretch. And I find I'm still stretching into the worthiness thing around allowing myself to receive, valuing myself, valuing what I do enough to believe I'm worth getting X amount of money, you know, putting a monetary value on it. So that is a growing space that I'm looking at. So I don't have a coach for that particular issue. I'm just working with a coach on just general growth. But that is sort of one of the phases around worthiness. Yeah. And thank you, Jeff. Just acknowledge you. Thank you very much.
I don't know how much time we have, but there's a few people that haven't spoken about this.
Sure, we have a few minutes, and actually what you've done is introduced a very good exit question for all of us to answer. So I don't have anything to do. So why don't we hear from Alan?
Well, what do I feel like I need from a coach right now? I'm trying to solidify the focus of the rest of the next part of my life, let's say. And I'm trying to identify and explain what it is I've been doing in the world. That's part of why I had some words when you asked me that, Harry. And I'm working with someone on that. But what I'm still trying to identify is what is that ineffable thing that I find admirable and important about myself and about others in the world. What kind of coach would that be? I'm not sure, but that's my question.
Cool. My answer to this is I would like to be more intentional about developing new habits and losing old habits. You know, specifically around concentrating work and doing work in uninterrupted blocks of time and making progress and then disconnecting.
How about Ken?
You know, I don't know. I've been listening to everyone, and I can take a little bit from everybody. I was particularly intrigued by the spirituality aspect because most people don't know this about me, and that I do have a very deep spiritual belief. I just don't share it a lot with people. And is it appropriate to work that into my coaching program? The other thing was something I think, Tim, you had mentioned about gay men when we're younger and how we learn to read a room. And I think it was you, I'm not sure. So whoever said that, I appreciate that because I think we are very in tune with other people's feelings and emotions along with our own. And some folks aren't good at identifying their emotions and working with them, and I'd like to help people do that. So for me, the crossroads will be at some point is to stop talking and working about plane crashes and things of that nature and death and dying and moving to the personal development and overcoming challenges, you know, we've all experienced maybe as children and that we've carried into adulthood to lead the life we want to lead.
Great.
Anybody else have an addition to Jeff's question?
I was just going to say I'm in the pay for my new teeth phase of my coaching career. But instead of handwritten letters, it's via email because it's 2017. So the handwritten letters might be a better, more effective
email.
But I mean, how can you find addresses these days? So I don't know. Or a mailbox for that matter. What would I do with this piece of paper with a stamp on it?
Eastern rosters.
Yeah, but it's all email addresses. Anyways, so I'm working on getting clients. And I want to give a shout out. I got a call or a text message last week from someone who I didn't recognize the number, and they were asking me about my coaching services. And apparently they found me through the GCA website. So thank you for that.
Cool.
Communication with them.
It works.
Well, we're at the end, and I had an exit question planned for you,
Oh.
so I will just ask you to think about it. It came from several of you, Garry and Wil, but it was that imagine that you are on a stage and there are 1,000 queer youth people, 30 and under, in that audience. What do you want to tell them? What something we want to say something to the young queer people of this country, like what do we need them for, and how we hope that they will pick up the ball, and how we want to help them. And so that's just something for you to think about. And it seems ridiculous, but I'm so curious about what snacks Wil Fisher and Jeff Moore had while they were on the call. It looks so delicious. And it looks like Garry is making dinner, and I wonder what he's cooking. And everybody else, oh, what's Jeff is holding up? Peanut butter. Okay, that looks good.
Mine's
Is
a
that
chicken
a coaching
salad.
recommended peanut butter? Will's having chicken salad.
Okay, guys, what should it be?
Lunchtime.
Butter?
And I don't know what Gary's making for dinner, but
Choose
what?
Yeah,
mango chicken or butter chicken.
Mango.
What's it?
it's going to be chicken.
Chicken or
It's
beef?
still gonna taste like chicken.
Yeah.
Oh, that is too funny. Would you lose your Harry? I love how he's frozen on a smile, though.
I know.
Good.
Good freeze.
Well, I'm happy to take over now because we're done. So,
So that means we can exchange recipes.
Yeah.
That's so
anything
good.
else, Harry?
That could be a sideline for the
Okay.
website.
Okay.
Absolutely. Your favorite recipe.
Favorite snacks. Okay, goodbye, everybody.